So some of you have been with us for the first two parts, part 3. This is about Krishna's marriage with his first queen, Rukmini. On the 18th time that Jarasandha tried to attack Mathura and harm Krishna and the Yadu dynasty, Krishna did something that he hadn't done the other 17 times. He ran from the battlefield with Balrama. They ran and ran and ran up a mountain. Jarasandha was searching, couldn't find them. He decided to burn all the area around the mountain and considered that Krishna had been killed. But Krishna hadn't been killed. Krishna and Balram jumped from the mountain, made transcendental arrangements to swiftly transport themselves to Dwarka. Shortly after they arrived, Balaram became married to Revati. We heard that description. It's from the 9th canto, but it's mentioned in the 10th canto. And shortly thereafter, the details started to be unfolded by Shukadeva Goswami, describing the plan that the king Bhishmaka's eldest son, Rukmini, had, the plan that he had for his sister, Rukmini. He wanted Rukmini to not marry Krishna. Rukmini had already made it known she wanted to marry Krishna. But Rukmini doesn't give the background, but Rukmini was envious of Krishna, big time. So much so that he defied his father, defied all the citizens that wanted, we'll hear as we discuss this, they very much wanted that Rukmini and Krishna be married. But Rukmini opposed it and stood his ground. His father yielded, and arrangements for marriage were made. Kings from all over the countryside were invited to come, really big kings, but hundreds and hundreds. And they came with their armies, not just some ministers, because they're expecting some resistance from Krishna and Balram. And sure enough, that's what happened. The list of the kings included Jarasandha once again, and Shishupal was the intended marriage partner, Shalva, Pondraka, and many others. Dantavakra was also there, and Vidurata, his brother, was also there with their armies. The father of Shishupal, his name was, what was his name? Huh? Damagosh. Massive armies, powerful kings, planning a battle with Krishna. Rukmini saw all those arrangements. No way am I going to marry Shishupal. So she wrote a letter. That's the historic love letter. She described her reasons why. She hadn't met Krishna, but she heard about Krishna, and based upon what she heard about Krishna, she given herself, her life, her everything to Krishna, gave her because of his qualities and characteristics. We're going to hear shortly in this evening, she understands he's the personality of Godhead. We'll hear her words. She gave Krishna a very detailed and practical plan whereby instead of marrying Shishupal, she could marry Krishna. But it was by the method that was trend-worthy, popular, conventional even, that when at a young girl's marriage or her Swayamvar ceremony, someone, a powerful king, would come and try to take her hand, take her away, kidnap her. Rakshasa marriage, which was honorable in Kshatriya dealings. So she gave detailed explanation of how that could be done, what not to do, what to do. And she wrote this letter, sent a Brahmana to Dwarka to deliver the letter to Krishna. The letter was delivered. The Brahmana read the letter. Krishna accepted. I will marry her. I'm very happy that she wants to marry me. I want to also marry her. And the king of Chedi, that's Shishupal, and Damagosh, they'll if they try to oppose this, they'll meet with unfavorable outcome. So, overnight, Krishna got on his chariot, made his way to the king of Vidarbha's province, his capital city, Kundina. And Rukmini didn't know that until the messenger arrived and said, not only has Krishna accepted, but he's arrived. She was so happy, so relieved. And that's where we ended up. The next morning, that's where we ended up. So here's some comments from our acharyas. When latent fire is aroused in wood, the fire bursts forth, consuming the wood in the act of manifestation. Similarly, Lord Krishna boldly predicted that Rukmini would come forth to take his hand, and that in the process the wicked kings would be burned by the fire of Krishna's determination. Poetic. Fire may burst forth from wood. Fire is within wood. And so similarly, by Krishna's taking the hand of Rukmini, fire would come and wicked kings would be burned. Meanwhile, back in Dwarka, Balaram heard that there's all these military arrangements being made by the kings on the other side, and that Krishna had left alone on his chariot to whisk Rukmini away, make her his bride. So he was, like an elder brother, concerned for his younger brother. He gathered massive army from the Yadu dynasty to deal with the situation. Now, we commented on this already, but Balaram is omniscient, just as Krishna is. Balaram knows that Krishna can't be defeated by anybody, however powerful. Yet Balaram has different feelings or moods of love for Krishna. Remember we discussed this? We didn't discuss it. Okay. For example, when Balaram saw that Krishna had been swallowed by the beak of Bakasura, What was Balaram's emotion? He fainted. And all the other cowherd boys, because they had such love for Krishna. But he knows that Krishna is all-powerful. It was a transcendental ecstasy that was arranged by Krishna's spiritual potency to Balaram experience that emotion. Here's another. When Nanda and Yasoda heard that Krishna was in the coils of the Kaliya serpent, their parental affection was aroused, spiked. Oh no, Krishna is in danger. But Balaram was completely undisturbed because he knew Krishna's just having fun. In that case, he was well aware of Krishna's omniscience. There's a range of other examples. Balaram, like Krishna, enjoys various emotions. And when he's enjoying an emotion, it's a transcendental emotion. It may look something like the worldly reflection of that transcendental emotion, but it's a transcendental emotion. So here's one. He's concerned. Uh-oh, my younger brother may be in difficulty. Here's another nice example. Very nice example. Classic example. When Balaram had an idea of who should marry their sister, because Krishna and Balaram had a sister. And her name? Subhadra. So Balaram had an idea who, because he's the elder brother, who their sister should marry. Duryodhana. But Krishna understood from his sister that she desired to marry Arjuna. And he understood from Arjuna that he wanted to marry Subhadra. So Krishna arranged a similar situation where Subhadra could be kidnapped by Arjuna. And when that happened, Balaram was furious. Get our entire army and go after Arjuna and finish him. But before doing that, he had to ask his brother. Although he's the elder brother, he wouldn't do something without consulting Krishna. So when he went to consult Krishna, Krishna just smiled. Said, I think it's really good. What? He's kidnapped our sister. And then Krishna gave his reasons. And Balaram accepted, just did a 180. Krishna said, instead of chasing after him and punishing him, let's catch up to him and bring them back, and the marriage can take place right here in Dwarka. And they can go very nicely to Hastinapur together. It's a married couple. So that's what happened. The purpose of explaining these things is this. In the spiritual realm, there are transcendental emotions. Transcendental emotions are the source of the reflection. Reality has a reflection, and the reflection is found here. And here, there's no substance. In reflection, there's no substance. That's like reflection. Here's a mirror, and here's an apple, and in the mirror, there's a reflection of the apple. So there's no substance in the reflection. But there's substance that of which the reflection is giving some indication of what the substance is. So transcendental emotions are experienced in Krishna's pastimes, and they're varied. So this is one of them. He wants to protect his younger brother. He gets a big army. And it plays a role in the pastime. So the next morning, Rukmini went with her friends outside the city to the place where their family deity was worshipped. The family deity was a form of Durga or Girija. Nice painting showing her. And with her, her girlfriends, the wives of Brahmanas, and bodyguards. Now, she was normally inside. No one had seen her beauty. The public had not seen her beauty. They'd heard, but they had not seen. When they saw her beauty, they were awestruck. While she's paying her respects before the family deity, Krishna and Balrama are coming in the front gate of Vaidarbha. And when the citizens came to know that Krishna had come, there we see Balram by Krishna's side and this nice chariot with big white horses, very opulent city, gate and festivities set up for the wedding. The people of Vaidarbhi were so eager to unite Krishna and Rukmini that they prayed to the personality of Godhead. Now, it doesn't say whether they understanding Narayana is the personality of Godhead or Krishna is, but our dear Lord, if we have performed any pious activities with which you are satisfied, kindly be merciful upon us and accept the hand of Rukmini. It sounds like they're praying to him as the personality of Godhead. However, when Rukmini was heading towards the temple, her mood was very grave and silent. The chivalrous princes or other kings assembled there were so overwhelmed by Rukmini's beauty that they became almost unconscious and fell from the horses and elephants, meaning her beauty was stunning. Unexcelled beauty, transcendental beauty, because she's the goddess of fortune. Rukmini is the goddess of fortune. We heard that at the very beginning of this discussion. That's her position. The goddess of fortune moving about this world. Here's two things. Or in the spiritual world, there's Lakshmi, the consort, eternal consort of Narayana. But like everything that's of the spiritual world, there's expansions in this world. So Lakshmi has her expansion. And the expansion of Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth that many people worship because that's what they want. They're not specifically, most people that are worshippers of Lakshmi, they're not wanting devotional service to Narayana. They want wealth. So they worship Lakshmi for wealth. That Lakshmi that most people worship, this is what our acharyas explain, she is an expansion. Here's another example of that. It's a nice example. In Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world, there's 4 members of the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Yes? You familiar? Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. These are called the Chaturvyuha. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, that's Krishna and Balaram. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So in Goloka, Krishna has a son named Pradyumna. Now Scripture teaches us that Pradyumna is the original Cupid or Madan. But that Cupid, the prototype Cupid, Pradyumna, has his expansion as a demigod. demigod is Madan, or Cupid, and he's really busy keeping everybody attracted to one another. The arrows of Cupid. There's a detailed description of this in one of the 10th canto chapters, where Madan made a big boo-boo. He decided that he wanted to see if he could incite Lord Shiva into lust. Well, he had a problem, because when he went to Lord Shiva, just by Lord Shiva's raising his brow in anger, Cupid burned to ashes. It's described in the scriptures that expansion of Cupid in the heavenly realm, the soul entered back into the original Pradyumna, because the demigod Cupid was his expansion. There's a whole description of all of this. When Pradyumna appeared during Krishna's pastimes as Krishna's first son, Pradyumna was the son of Rukmini and Krishna, their first son, first wife, first son. And when that Pradyumna appeared, then he was the original Pradyumna of the spiritual world. And within him was the expansion, the demigod Cupid. So what happened was, Cupid's wife in the heavenly realm was without a husband. She was without a husband because Lord Shiva cindered her husband into a pile of ashes. So she went to Lord Shiva and pleaded with Lord Shiva, please help me. I'd like to have my husband back. Anyway, there's some details of what happened after that. Interesting details. I'm getting lost. I wanted to, using this as an example, that there's, in the spiritual realm, there's the original, and there's the expansions of the original that may exist here in this realm. So Rukmini is not the Lakshmi that many people worship who want wealth. So they worship Lakshmi. That's a demigoddess of wealth. But the Lakshmi, the consort of Narayana, that's Rukmini. So her beauty, just like Krishna's beauty is so astounding, or Narayan's beauty is so astounding, Rukmini's beauty was so astounding, men that had never seen her before, they practically fell unconscious and fell from the horses and elephants. So she's coming before the temple of Girija with her friends and wives of the Brahmanas, etc. And here comes Krishna in his chariot. So now there's many nice paintings of what happens next. Krishna, unconcerned with the other princes, placed Rukmini on his chariot and moved slowly away. Here's a painting of the temple. There you see many armed Durga in that temple. Krishna's slowly helping Rukmini get on his chariot, with his drawn by white horses. We don't see the armies yet, but there's the ladies that were accompanying Rukmini. They're very happy. Another very old painting showing the same. Nice painting. And here's a more modern painting. Krishna is placing Rukmini very gently on his chariot, and he then proceeded slowly, without fear, taking Rukmini away, exactly as a lion takes a deer from the midst of jackals. Now there's the ladies following behind the chariot. There's the warriors. There's big elephants in the background, and they're ready for battle. Here's a close-up of that same painting. And Rukmini is very happy to be with Krishna. That's what she wanted. And Krishna reciprocated with her nice devotee, his nice devotee. Look in the background, you see some chariots trying to catch up to Krishna. Because these kings, Jarasandha and others, that had previously been defeated by Krishna many times, Jarasandha began to roar. How is this? Krishna is taking Rukmini away from us without any opposition. What is the use of our being chivalrous fighters? My dear princess, just look. We are losing our reputation by this action. It is just like the other way around. A jackal's taking booty from a lion. The other way around. So we heard this before when in this section, when the first of the classes, when Jarasandha was chasing after Krishna, he's filled with pride. He's very envious of the strength of Krishna, filled with anger. So he's a demon. And he can't stand what he's observing. And there's others that are like him, and they're furious. So the reflection is, where does this come from? What's the root cause of these pride, anger, envy, and the other bad, negative emotions? And what's the need that's not being met? And what do we need? If those things start to well up in us, what are we supposed to do? Those are nice questions. No, the transcendental answer is, we've forgotten Krishna, and therefore the modes of nature are impelling us into feelings and actions. Now, what's the antidote for the modes of nature? Well, you regulate them as for starters, but take shelter of Krishna. Now, Jarasandha is not able to do that, or unwilling to do that. So off Krishna goes, driving the chariot himself. And there's warriors on this side, there's warriors on that side. Big scene. Because from the previous class, it was understood. Dhamaghosh and all the others they came not just for a wedding, they came prepared for battle. Just in case, and sure enough, their just in case happened. So now they're going into action. Determined to defeat Krishna and recapture Rukmini from his custody, Jarasandha and his companions fought with Krishna's army as severely as possible. Now, Krishna's army means Balram's army. Because Krishna, in her letter, she advised Krishna come alone, because if you come with a bunch of soldiers, there'll be fights even before you get in the city. So come alone, bring some commanders, and have your armies ready. So he didn't make the arrangement for the armies being ready, but Balaram did that. And she's very fearful. A nice princess that's been kept well protected inside the palace of her father. And here's a bunch of, look at the armies coming chasing them. So she's fearful. Krishna sees that she's fearful. So he just gives her reassurance. He laughed. Do not be afraid, beautiful-eyed one. This enemy force is about to be destroyed by your soldiers. And there's lots of commentary about the word your, because by kidnapping her in this way, by touching her in this way, she's not to be married to anyone else. They're married. Balaram's going to say this shortly. In the background, there you see the temple, Girija temple, and there you see many soldiers pursuing intensely. But they're going to meet Rukmini's soldiers, or the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty, headed by Balaram. So there's painting of Balaram doing battle with the other soldiers, the other kings. Lord Balaram and the other heroes then began to annihilate the opposing army with Naracha arrows. I don't know what a Naracha arrow is, but they're probably kind of mystical special arrows. Being subdued by Krishna's army, Jarasandha and other princes, this is spelled wrong, consoled Shishupal. So there's a whole description of the battle back and forth and back and forth. It was not just a mention like this, but there's Balaram doing battle with massive armies and using his plow and using his club and whatever he's got. Now the armies were repelled, but Rukmini, being especially envious of Krishna, couldn't bear to see what had just happened. So what did Rukmini do? He pursued Krishna's chariot, and he tried his very best to catch up to Krishna, and he wanted to finish Krishna. He was very envious and very angry. Well, that's a big mistake. As Rukmini attacked Krishna, the Lord shot arrows that broke Rukmini's sword and shield into small pieces. Krishna then took up his own sharp sword and prepared to kill Rukmini. Now this painting shows Balaram with his plow. We don't hear anything about Balaram being involved, although he is proximate because he stops what Krishna is going to be doing. Rukmini prayed to Krishna to not slay her brother. Now, going back, her brother was wicked. He knew what she wanted. He knew what his father wanted. He knew what the citizens wanted. But because of his envy, he was overriding all of that and just even common courtesy to his sister, and was intending to have her marry somebody she was not at all inclined to marry and force it. Yet Rukmini is very soft. You can say forgiving, but, attached to the well-being of her brother. And so she prayed to Krishna. And here's the words. I included the words because it indicates she understood Krishna's position. O controller of all mystic power, immeasurable one, Lord of lords, Master of the universe. O all auspicious and mighty armed one, please do not kill my brother. So Krishna is going to oblige her. And Rukmini's utter fear caused her limbs to tremble and her mouth to dry up, while her throat choked up out of sorrow. In her agitation, her golden necklace scattered, and she grasped Krishna's feet. So she's very dear to Krishna, and somehow she's all forgiving of her brother. She doesn't wish ill upon her brother for all of the bad things that he did. I mean, a normal person would say he's getting what he deserves. But she's not a normal person. So what did Krishna do? Feeling moved by her compassion for her brother, Krishna stopped. Here we see with his sword must have been really sharp. That's not just like a powerful sword, but very, very, very sharp. So he started cutting his hair and his beard. He tied up Rukmi with a strip of cloth. You see the strip of cloth behind his back. And he started to shave him, leaving parts of his mustache and hair. Now, what's Rukmini feeling? She saved her brother, but look at the condition of her brother. Here's another painting of the same. He's being taken away like a criminal. Now, it doesn't describe that in the Bhagavatam, but this is an artist's painting of that same situation. So, observing all of this is Balaram. And one of the things that we know about Balaram's personality is he likes being a peacemaker. He's like a good mediator, have people get along together. So he's seeing Rukmini's sorrow over the plight of her brother. And although he knew that Rukmini was guilty, he wanted to encourage her. So to encourage her, he did two things. He spoke strongly to his younger brother. This is an abomination, very much contrary to our family tradition. To cut someone's hair and shave his mustache and beard is almost comparable to killing him. Whatever Rukmini might have been, he is now our brother-in-law, a relative of our family, and you should not have put him in such a condition. So that was spoken to soften Rukmini's feelings. And after speaking words like this, he then turned to Rukmini and spoke transcendental teachings. He explained that what Rukmini was experiencing was the fruit of his own past misdeeds. And he spoke other philosophy about don't be in the bodily conception of life, which she was in, apparently, because not only there was forgiveness of him, but she's like trembling and all these symptoms of attachment on the bodily platform. So seemingly she's like that. Thus Balaram reconciled the situation by his moral and ethical instructions to Rukmini and to Krishna. So we're going to hear some more of precisely what he said, the transcendental teachings. Transcendental teachings about reality of life. Like, chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. O intelligent lady, the soul never undergoes contact with or separation from insubstantial material objects because the soul is their very origin and illuminator. Thus the soul resembles the sun, which neither comes in contact with nor separates from the sense of sight and what is seen. Got it? The sense of sight and what is seen, they're the consequence of consciousness. Even the objects that one sees, this is just speaking sight, and then all the other, the whole cosmic manifestation arises for what reason? It's arranged through Prakriti, but it's arranged through Prakriti because of the conscious soul having desires. So the things that you're seeing, you really have nothing to do with the things that you're seeing and the emotions of seeing what you're seeing, connected, attraction or repulsion. The soul never undergoes contact with or separation from insubstantial material objects because the soul is their very origin and illuminator. I mean, the soul isn't the cause of objects, but the soul is the cause of desire. And seeing desire Krishna recognizes the desire and makes arrangements within Prakriti to fulfill the desire. But one can say, one position can be, the soul is the generator of those objects, generated by desire and karma, guna and karma. He's going on. What is illusion? As a sleeping person perceives himself, the objects of sense enjoyment, and the fruits of his acts within the illusion of a dream, so one is unintelligent, undergoes material existence. So there's a picture of a fish jumping to catch a butterfly or something. Like in a dream, there may be something that's desirable or undesirable. There may be a situation that's fearful. And because one perceives a situation as desirable or fearful, the body may undergo some transformations. One may cry or scream or perspire and tremble if something that's fearful, and wake up. And the threat isn't there because it was just a dream. Balrama is speaking like this to Rukmini. You're feeling these feelings, but it's something like a sleeping person perceiving himself and some objects and having some emotions connected with it. That's all illusion. Just like the illusion of a dream. And in this way, unintelligent persons undergo material existence, thinking that situations are the real situation. It's speaking again about this dynamic, so many different examples of it, that there's the reality and there's the reflection of reality. And unintelligent persons accept the reflection to be reality. Naturally, if they accept the reflection to be reality, when the description of reality, they think it's imagination. It's one cancels out the other. It's binary. And the lens through which binary consciousness is projected is the mind. And the mind can't, so it's just one of those things. The mind can't go to transcendence. You can try to think of transcendence, but the mind doesn't reach there because it's material. It stays within this duality. So if you want to say, that's where impersonalism comes. If you want to have something spiritual, it has to be what this isn't. It's not the experience of transcendence, it's a definition by negation. This is illusion, and therefore reality must be nothing like the illusion. That's the mind. You with me? Impersonalism is a product of the mind. It's the flip side. It's the tails side of the coin. Here there's form, no form. Here there's personality, no personality. Here there's qualities, no qualities, etc. The mind cannot reach transcendence because transcendence is that from which the illusion comes or the reflection comes. And if you're absorbed in the reflection, you can't see the object that's making the reflection, nor do you even understand the process of reflection. You can hear about it and conceptualize it and say, yeah, that, okay, makes sense. But so what Balrama is doing here, he's giving basically Sankhya philosophy and asking her to, based upon knowledge, be detached. Reflection, embedded in this presentation a little, and we could spend some time on any one of these. What are some examples of illusory ideas that we have about ourselves? Well, and here's an obvious one. We accept that we're spirit souls, and we also have a sense of identity with the body. I mean, we accept that we're spirit souls. We're not going to disagree with that. But we also identify with the body. So that's an illusory idea about ourselves. And then we live our lives. So how do you do it? What's recommended instead of that one? What's recommended is practice, sadhana, of directing by regular activities that are of transcendental nature. The 9 processes of bhakti are of transcendental nature. We make those connections. Shravanam kirtanam, Vishnu smaranam, padasevanam, archanam, bandhanam, dasyam. We engage in those activities that are of a transcendental nature to help lift our consciousness towards transcendence and diminish the impact of the illusory conception upon our lives. So a common question is, how do we gauge our progress? How are we doing in our spiritual lives? It's the plus and the minus. Very simple. A growing attraction for hearing topics that are of a transcendental nature from a transcendental source, like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or topics about Krishna, etc., Kirtan, etc. Hearing an eagerness to hear transcendental sound, and a detachment from the mind going to, when there's leisure time or discretionary time, going to objects, especially our favorite ones, where we're thinking, this is maybe, some pleasure over here in the object of the senses. And as that subsides and the other grows, that's a sign of progress. I mean, there's other things, but those are very easy to measure. The mindfulness with which we do those things is another measure. In other words, staying in the devotional mood while we're doing the activity, the intention and the mindfulness with which we do what we do, the sense of devotion. I'm just thinking as I'm speaking, there's a devotee somewhere, nice devotee, and he was sharing, it happened over a period of a few months, twice. I find that when I'm doing arti, I'm not there. I'm doing all the activities, but it has become mechanical. I know it's not right. I'm continuing to do my arti anyways, but why and what to do? So my point is, devotional service is not just a behavior, but a measure of our progress is the consciousness of devotion behind the behavior. So it's one thing to get the behaviors down, Vaishnava achar. That's good. Sadachar, good behavior, good conduct. And to support and stabilize and mature all of that, then it's this is to be done for the pleasure of Krishna. Here's another nice example. Easy one. Kirtan. There's not young people in the room right now, so I'll say it. But they know it's true anyways. Young people like Kirtan. Just like the other day, one of the, really nice Kirtan. As soon as the Kirtan was over, the youth got up and they left the room. Now, not only they're not interested in japa, they're interested in the musicality and the social interaction and the dynamic of music, because music is a universal language and a universal attraction for people of all cultures all around the world. It's natural. There's nothing wrong with it. It's nice. But the purpose of pleasing Krishna is another thing, besides the behavior. So it's a challenge in progressing in spiritual life to not just do the behaviors, or like be engaged in kirtan and not necessarily the other kinds of music where there's Krishna's name and etc. But it's the devotion behind it. So that's a measure of our making progress. And as long as that remains weak, or to the degree that that's weak, then illusion is going to be predominant, or more predominant than when for the purpose of pleasing Krishna becomes stronger. And, yeah. I was in Vrindavan, as you know, for Kartik, and we were out in the field visiting places, but every afternoon, Madhava is a devotee from Mauritius, a wonderful kirtanier. But it was having kirtan every afternoon for 3 hours in the MVT, and there's a big yard, a lawn, and a sound system, and he had permission to do that, and they just set up and had kirtan. And when he sings from his heart, and when he sings from his heart, people's hearts are moved. I heard a discussion from the devotees that were participating, because I wasn't there. There was. He's a charismatic person. He attracts because of his bhakti. And there were some people that were saying, I'm a yoga teacher, and I've been to many of these kirtans, but the experience isn't the same. It's more showmanship, or fancy things, drum beats and melodies and voice inflections and things. And he does all that, but the quality is different. So their comment was, this experience was altogether different. So the devotee that was narrating this to me was saying, these people, these yoga instructors, were speaking to him during lunch. No, the evening. They were at the Govinda's restaurant discussing. Wow, that was a nice experience. And he said, I feel a fire in my heart, and the fire in my heart is coming out through my voice. I mean, it's not like hot fire, but an intensity, and it comes out, and it's a different experience. So this is responsive to what are some examples of illusory ideas that we have about ourselves. When there's paucity or weakness in bhakti, we should be honest with ourselves, wherever we are, and not just feel bad about what we aren't, but move in the direction that we want to go. What are some practical ways to remind ourselves of our reality? The spiritual reality is the connection with Krishna, and do the things that we'd like to do in devotion for Krishna, and evaluate ourselves, and don't be hard on ourselves, but evaluate ourselves and try to move in that direction. So this is Balaram continuing to Rukmini. Therefore, with transcendental knowledge, sounds like a Bhagavad Gita verse, dispel the grief that is weakening and confounding your mind. Please resume your natural mood, O princess of the pristine smile. correct and connect to your real self. Let go of this temporary illusion. So it works because he is the original guru, and she's a good receiver, and she's receiving Balaram's transcendental message, and she becomes pacified. Now later, there's an encounter between Balaram and Rukmini that has a different mood. But we'll hear about that later. Right now, it's Krishna marries Rukmini. They go to Dwarka. He continues on the chariot, and they go to Dwarka, and Rukmini and Krishna are married. Here's the ceremony where his feet are being washed, and Rukmini giving garland to Krishna, and the formal ceremony of the marriage of Krishna and Rukmini. So we're almost done. This is the wedding itself. They're entering into the threshold of their new palace where Rukmini and Krishna are going to reside. And this is the final slide. Determination of a devotee meets determination of Krishna despite the difficulties on the path. I was remembering the one of the questions that was being asked. What practical take-home lessons are we to learn from this? Remember that question? Life has obstacles. Even if, and you can fill in the blank, even if you're dear associates of Krishna like the Pandavas and Queen Kunti, this in Queen Kunti's prayers. You know, the difficulties, the hardships that the Pandavas had to endure. She wasn't complaining and whining. She was saying in each of these, and she lists several of them, extreme hardships, you were there and you protected us. We're in the, from here I'm going to Portland tomorrow. And the plan, while in Portland, is to have a rerun, an improved rerun on Light of the Bhagavad. Because during the Thanksgiving weekend I was in central New Jersey, and it was a multiple part presentation on a book that Prabhupada wrote in 1962, Light of the Bhagavad. The journey that Prabhupada went through leading up to the writing of that book that never got published in 1962. It didn't get published during his lifetime. But he had a whole plan. He had a vision of how to reach the hearts and the minds of... His vision was to make a revolution in the spiritual lives of people of this world. And he wanted this conference in Tokyo that he was invited to go to. Far-thinking, elevated, thoughtful, intelligent shakers and movers that wanted to lift. It's called the Conference for the Upliftment of Human Spirit. Something like that. Anyway, Prabhupada met obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And he was undaunted. There's a nice passage. What was his strength? He was determined. And his determination was to please his spiritual master. And because of that determination and great faith in the holy name and perseverance despite no results. Krishna smiled, and it took a long time, but the fruit of that determination blossomed suddenly and very dynamically. There's a nice passage in Lilamrita. What's Lilamrita is a book that was written after Prabhupada's departure by one of his disciples, Satsvarup Maharaj, who was gifted writer also. And he liked to write about Prabhupada, and so he was commissioned by the GBC to write Lilamrita. It's the life of Prabhupada. There's a nice section which describes one of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples named Krishna Das Babaji. And those of you that are a little familiar with Bhaktisiddhanta, he was not supportive of Babaji behavior. But Krishna Das was the one disciple who Bhaktisiddhanta approved, authorized to accept Babaji stage of life. Even when he was younger as a brahmachari, he just chanted and chanted and chanted and chanted and chanted. He was absorbed in the holy name. And when Bhaktisiddhanta visited that temple, they complained, this fellow, he doesn't do anything but chanting. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, that's okay. Others cannot do what he's doing. It's genuine. Let him just chant. So eventually he became a Babaji. And he loved chanting. So one time, that's his Jagannath, no. Krishna Das Babaji, yes? Krishna Das Babaji was in a room with two other godbrothers who were sannyasis. So here's the Babaji with Ban Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Ban Maharaj, disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, was very scholarly, very learned, very aristocratic, very capable speaker. It was he, Ban Maharaj, who was selected by Bhaktisiddhanta to be one of two sannyasis to go to England and establish the Gaudiya Math in England, in London. And he was there for nearly 3 years. He spent some time in Germany, came back with no results. When he was being supported by the Gaudiya Maths in India, like to start Krishna consciousness in Europe, in the West. And then he's in the room, Krishna Das Babaji, with Ban Maharaj and Prabhupada. And he was lighthearted, and he said, here's both of you. You're both very learned, you're both good writers, you're both good speakers, you're both highly qualified, and you both did the same thing, and he was successful and you were not. Why? Ban Maharaj said he was given special empowerment by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to do what he did. And Krishna Das Babaji said he had full faith in the holy name. He went and sat under a tree amongst hippies and, not good quality people, with simply faith in the holy name. And that's this faith in the holy name that transformed thousands of people. He didn't say, you came back empty-handed. He just said it was his faith in the holy name. And then he told some other stories about Srila Prabhupada's faith in the holy name. So that he understood where a great source of strength is not just having kirtan, but having faith in the holy name. It's not just the musicality, because lots of people can make music, but not everybody has faith in the holy name in the same way, to the same degree. there's strength. So the determination to take full shelter in the holy name means Krishna will see that. Oh, Krishna, if it's not there, Krishna will also see that. It's not like this is not a challenge. It's just pointing a direction. And so faith in the instruction of the spiritual master and faith in the holy name. And being very determined. That is, not being fruitive, but being determined in the mood of rendering service that's pleasing to Guru and Krishna. That was Prabhupada's strength. In the painting, there's at the bottom, Princess Rukmini, her letter to Krishna. And difficulties will be there as we're trying to go forward in our lives, spiritual lives and otherwise. There's going to be difficulties guaranteed. And the spiritual dimension of living one's life while facing difficulties is staying very determined to not deviate from Krishna. I won't give the name, but when I was in Central New Jersey, there's a young lady who is completing her medical studies. And she's like so focused on passing the exams, and this exam, and then that exam, and then now here's the final exam. And she's, really focused. While there at Central New Jersey conducting this seminar on Light of the Bhagavad, it was her birthday. So she took a break from her studies because she's focused on her studies to, come for a class and then cutting a birthday cake. So we had a little conversation. And her comment is, hearing this topic about Light of the Bhagavad, it made me think, I'm so focused on preparing for my career that Krishna's kind of in the back seat. And I have to bring Krishna more in the center of what I'm doing. We had this nice discussion about what happens if you do, what happens if you don't. And the young person is devotional for sure. For sure. But we can also be devotional and Krishna's in the back seat. So don't make that mistake. And the difference, let's just say, in her profession as a medical practitioner, how much more she'll be able to help people than just the medicine. If there's bhakti that's being behind the exhibition of the profession. And same for everybody. You don't have to be a physician, whatever your profession is. You can impact the people who you infect, in a spiritual sense, by carrying the bhakti quality within your heart. You'll help benefit those around you and the world. It's exactly what's in the message of the Light of the Bhagavad. So it's like in my system. I'm going to do it again when I go to Portland. 16 classes on this topic. I'm really looking forward to it. So that's my message. That's this message. That was the take-home message. Difficulties are there. Remain determined to be connected to Krishna. There's distractions. That's part of life in this world. Stay focused on what the main business of this human form of life. Stay focused. Do the thing that you do with that purpose, pleasing Krishna. And Krishna will help you. He'll see that. and he'll help you achieve his association, like he did with Rukmini. I mean, there was a battle. But Balrama was ready. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion.
In this statement, Maharaj, what is Krishna's determination here?
What is Krishna's determination? He wants Rukmini. He wants to be in a relationship with Rukmini. In her case, it's marriage. But there may be other relationships with Krishna. Krishna's ready. Krishna's determination is to invite us into our relationship with him. He's ready. Our determination is weak.
I was just thinking, in the case of Srila Prabhupada, he was so determined in his endeavor to fulfill the instructions of his spiritual master.
Yeah.
And then obstacles after obstacles. And how do we understand what is Krishna's determination?
What is
there?
what? Krishna's determination? Same answer, same question. Krishna was drawing Prabhupada to the place of nothing, nothing, nothing else. Obstacles, nothing else. Success, nothing else. Here's an answer to your question. Prabhupada said in very simple terms. Supposing, Prabhupada speaking, supposing you express to Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, I want to be in your loving association and simply serve you. And Krishna hears, and Krishna says, oh, what about a little sense gratification? And Krishna extends some sense gratification, and the devotee says, no, I only want you. And Krishna says, what about a little hardship? You sure you want me? The hardship comes, and the devotee says, I don't mind the hardship, I simply want you. So Krishna, recognizing the determination of the devotee, gives himself to them. So it's part of your question is the determination of Srila Prabhupada, and what's Krishna's determination in that regard? He gave this test. That's what Krishna will test sometimes. And test doesn't mean he doesn't know. It means it's helping us, for at least the sincere person, that there's no other shelter. Supposing one thinks there's other shelter. Whatever that other, I'm smart, or I'm wealthy, or something, something, something. I have some other shelters. Krishna's determination was helping Prabhupada to come to that position. In part so we could glorify him. Supposing it came, really easy. Wouldn't be as glorious. And one starts to have an understanding of some of the details of the obstacles and the difficulties that were presented to Prabhupada. It's pretty intense. Really intense. And therefore, Prabhupada having the strength and determination, Krishna helped him. Supposing we don't have that kind of determination, we can't take on the service that Prabhupada did. We just don't have the capacity. But we have some capacity, and whatever that capacity is, so that's Krishna's determination. Recognizing that that was his capacity, he was empowering this person to do what hasn't been done for. There's no example in history of a world religion spreading around the world in 12 years. There's no example in history. So, Krishna determination.
Thank you.
Strengthening that resolve. And back.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have two questions. First question, first question is about like when Rukmini wants to save her brother. First we discussed about how compassionate she is, and that is one of the quality that we hear about. Whatever happens, if someone does something for you, we want to forgive and forget. And then we see Lord Balrama is talking about reality and illusion, bodily conception. So how do I know where I'm going, that side or this side? Means I'm feeling a compassion
When you
towards...
say that side or this side, what are the two options?
One side is I'm feeling compassion about that person, or I'm bodily attached, or I'm in mixed modes and not aligned with Krishna, pleasing Krishna. Like if I want to apply myself there.
I still want to understand the two sides. One side is, out of compassion for her brother, she doesn't want to see him hurt.
Yeah.
And then on the other side is transcendental knowledge, the soul is not going to be hurt. The soul is disconnected to this transcendental knowledge thing. There should be detachment with knowledge. So being detached through knowledge, or being compassionate, which looks like attachment. Is that the two sides?
Yes.
Okay. So your question is, how do I understand my position? That's your question? Detachment doesn't mean, put it in simple language, detachment doesn't mean I don't care. For some people, that's what it looks like. Maybe even that's what it feels like. They're numb. They don't care. Because they don't like the pain of compassion. But there are persons, Prabhupada is a nice example. He felt, he underwent great difficulties, nonstop, out of compassion. But it was with detachment, that the detachment wasn't I don't care detachment. It was detachment from his sense of being the enjoyer of the claim that came to him, the wealth that came to him, the followers that came to him. Because many people, they get spun out when that stuff happens. Wealth comes, or followers come, or acclaim comes, or recognition comes. Even if that's not like the main thing that they were chasing after, when it comes, it's easy for the mind to get spun out. So how you can judge yourself is when there's, in the face of duality, where's your shelter? When there's hardship, where does your mind go to? Where does your heart go to? When there's praise or success or a sense of acceptance by others, where does your consciousness go? At last. Amanina manadena. Right? You know those two words from Shikshastaka? Ready to offer all respects to others with no expectation of respect in return. So some persons feel if they're not recognized, they're not encouraged. And they'll sometimes they don't know it, and sometimes they know it. They want recognition. They want acknowledgement. And it's like, that's not nasty, but it's duality. And then supposing recognition comes, then it's pride. So that's how you can understand your position. The detachment isn't I don't care, it's that's not what's important to me. You still do things, as Prabhupada did, out of compassion for people who are suffering. All over the world, persons he never met, the whole world. And he was dedicating himself to people he didn't know. Sacrificing and sacrificing and sacrificing. Because there was compassion. But with detachment from knowing who he really is and who they really are, and the situation is illusion. And he wanted to relieve the illusion by knowledge and loving relationships. That's compassion. Second question.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
You had two questions.
Yeah, I have second question. So
You forgot.
No, I remember. So when we are progressing in our spiritual path, when we introspect ourselves, so now with some hearing and like what the standard is and where I am, so sometimes it feels sad. I'm not I'm not
there yet.
I know that I'm supposed to.
There's a big gap between
Yeah,
what we
big
know
gap.
and where we are.
And then I don't want to be sad also. I want to accept and move forward.
Good.
But I'm not doing it gracefully. I think somewhere up and down,
Yeah.
like that.
Welcome to the club. So now what to do?
Yeah, how to move.
Keep moving. Accept that's my position. I'm in the up and down stage. I'm in the Anishita Bhakti stage. Let me move. So the acknowledgement. Don't wallow in self-sorrow.
Move happily. How to move happily.
But because there's hope. And the hope is forward. With hope, with faith. Asha Bandha, in the language of Rupa Goswami. It's right in Nectar Devotion. Read Prabhupada's books, you get the answer to this kind of question. Although I'm unqualified, I'm shameless. I'm asking for your mercy. I'm unqualified. I'm shameless. I'm asking for your mercy. There's hope. And that's you're merciful. That's my hope. So you go towards the light. Tamasi ma jyotirgama. That's what we do. And as many times as it's down, you go back up. You acknowledge, here I am again. And you go forward. Jyotirgama. That's what we do. But we're not alone. We have persons guiding us and helping us and giving us what we need, including challenges as well as strength. That's what we do. Someone else?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. think my second question was something similar. My first question was something similar to her second question.
She asked your question.
Yes,
Okay.
I was something was coming into my mind for the couple of weeks, but most of them were answered in the final statement. But just I understand that surrender or submission is our natural position.
What's your natural position?
Surrender,
Surrender
submission,
is your natural
surrender.
position.
Yes, and also it's like reciprocating to Krishna's mercy. So sometimes I feel the level of surrender is a little lower, and sometimes it keeps.
You're just describing the unsteady bhakti stage.
So is it is it also a difficulty on the path? So how to keep the surrender steady?
By becoming pure. And there's a price. And that's giving yourself to Krishna. That's surrender. It's to get surrender, you cultivate surrender. And so it's the price. You let go and you accept.
Thanks, Maharaj.
And there's resources. There's mercy coming. And someone sees Krishna, and the representatives of Krishna see, and they extend mercy. It's gradual because we're still clinging to that which causes the unsteadiness.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's false shelters. We cling to them.
Yeah, one day.
Krishna's not going to slap you around.
Okay.
He's not going to force you to surrender to him. That's not Krishna.
Yeah.
He'll just continue to be there and ready when you're ready. He'll encourage. Send representatives, send messages, send light. Keep moving.
Thanks,
Same.
Guru Maharaj. Okay.
Anyone else? We have something up front.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So if we are doing one service for helping the devotees.
For what?
Helping the devotees.
Helping the devotees.
In chanting. And that is helping me to improve my chanting. Is that selfishness to think about?
Is that what?
Is that selfishness to think of?
Why? Why would it be selfishness? I mean, selfishness is a motivation. It's not a behavior. If we're doing something that's benefiting others, and knowing that by doing something that's benefiting others, that is service to the Vaishnavas, is pleasing to Krishna, is that selfishness? It's our real self-interest. It's our transcendental self-interest. But everything, so the answer to your question, it depends on the motivation.
Thank you.
Yes? 2 questions online.
This question is from Giri Govardhana Dasi Mataji. It seems that there is a natural basic need of humans and devotees to have support of others. When that isn't there, is that Krishna removing all other shelters?
Well, it's a delicate question because there may be a feeling of not having shelter of others, but there's always shelter of others. Meaning, the others may not be proximate, but there are, in our lives as devotees, the person asking this question and the others of us in this room and online, we have persons that care about us, persons that are qualified, and they care about us, and they may not be proximate. And that well-wishing is palpable and significant. Let's say even our acharyas, our predecessor acharyas who aren't physically on the planet, our well-wishers, they are our well-wishers also. And they are giving, and they're prepared to give more and more of their mercy to us and lift us up. So the sense of not having acceptance, not having persons around us that are accepting, it may require a transcendental conception, because supposing there are persons around you who are accepting of you, and you may be receiving that with filters, and they may be giving it with filters. So the acceptance is my point is, the need, it isn't, it's just, we're social beings and we have needs, social needs. To be a transcendentalist doesn't mean you have no social needs, but you meet those social needs in transcendental ways. So yes, it may be Krishna's giving you his shelter so that you understand that there is acceptance on the transcendental plane, not just on this mortal plane or temporal plane. So Krishna is apparently withdrawing this kind of shelter or encouragement or acceptance in order that you can access transcendental shelter or acceptance. That's certainly possible. Next.
This question is from Radhamurti. If obstacle itself is a family members in performing devotional service, what should I do?
If someone is doing what?
If obstacle itself is a
If
family
what
members.
is? Yeah, what's the first word?
Obstacle. Obstacle.
Obstacles. If obstacles are being presented by family members, then?
In performing devotional service, what should I do?
Smile. Depends on the obstacle. Depends on the family member. Depends on the relationship. But if I say the first response is smile, trust in Krishna. Obstacles are in this world, whether they're coming from family members or the weather or government or taxes or your occupation, or somebody hit your car or something like that. So obstacles are going to be there. So smile, because the contentment of the smile means contentment within. And then how you deal with whatever the obstacle is depends upon the obstacle and the circumstance. Whatever the obstacle might be and wherever it's coming from, the message is don't deviate 1 inch from the position of being contented in your relationship with Krishna. So that's easy to say, but that's what one should do, because that's the question: what should you do when? And keep good association. Sadhu Sangha will help you achieve that. Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.